Welcome back to our Wednesday Word. This last Sunday I mentioned something that I tend to think about during Advent season, which is we retell and almost relive the story of the incarnation of Christ so much that we almost kind of walk in the footsteps, so to speak, of certainly Mary and Joseph, Zechariah and Elizabeth, the Magi, the shepherds who come that first night. Simeon is one of my favorite characters that we read about in Luke chapter 2, because he was a man who had such amazing faith, coming day after day to the temple, looking for, seeking after, watching after, longing for the coming of the Messiah as was promised. But it wasn't some sort of naive notion that many Jews during that day had, that the Messiah was coming to bring simply prosperity and freedom from the oppression of the Roman Empire in that day, and happiness. He knew, supernaturally so, as we see in his prophecy in Luke 2, he knew that Jesus would be spoken against, that this Jesus would be the cause of the downfall of many in the nation. Simeon's peace, really, and what he was hoping for and looking for and longing for, was the assurance that God would keep his word, and that somehow, beyond all the conflict that was to come as a result of the Messiah's arrival, that salvation absolutely was going to prevail. And so listen to how Luke records this, starting in chapter 2, verse 29, where Mary and Joseph are bringing Jesus to the temple for cleansing, for various ceremonies, and Simeon greets them as they come. He says, "Now, Lord, you are releasing your bondservant to depart in peace, according to your word. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you prepared in the presence of all peoples, a light of revelation to the Gentiles and the glory of your people Israel." Luke says his father and mother were amazed at all the things which were being said about him. And then Simeon continues, "Behold, this child is appointed for the fall and rise of many in Israel, and for a sign to be opposed, and a sword will pierce even your own soul, to the end that the thoughts from many hearts may be revealed." Now, key in what he says there is at the beginning of his prophecy. "For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you prepared in the presence of all peoples, a light of revelation to the Gentiles, and the glory of your people Israel." Now hear what he's saying. Jesus is the Jewish Messiah who comes to bring glory to Israel, but the mercy shown to Israel, in a sense, it's like it swells over the banks of the nation and brings revelation to all the nations. Now, consider that in light of what Isaiah says, because Isaiah described the mission of the Messiah very similar to this in chapter 49, verse 6. "It is too small a thing that you should be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved ones of Israel. I will also make you a light of the nations, so that my salvation may reach to the end of the earth." Isaiah is implying that it would be a dishonor to God's servant Messiah if he did not give him more to do than simply restore the glory of an oppressed and sinful Israel. It's too little a thing, is literally what he says. So Simeon, following Isaiah, he assigns two tasks to Jesus here, this little baby, as the light of the world in bringing revelation to the nations and glory to Israel. A light and revelation. So that means that he is going to reveal the true God and the true way of salvation to the Gentiles. And Israel's rejection of the Messiah, which is predicted right here by Simeon, is unwittingly going to unleash this tidal wave of grace, of mercy, extended to the entire world. And so today, as Fellowship Church Lubbock, We are, as Paul describes, no longer strangers, no longer aliens, but we are fellow citizens with the saints and are of God's household. And it all goes back to this little encounter that this old man Simeon, who apparently was promised by God, you will not die before you see your salvation. It's an incredible little gem that we find in this Advent story.